long as I've been involved in public education, math has been the thing that everyone is keen to add, because locally, nationally, and internationally, math scores have always needed a boost. More math time, less phone time, they would combine to make some difference. However, the far bigger difference would be made simply by focusing all of our teaching and learning efforts on deriving meaning rather than rewarding simply having a good memory. Sustainable learning. Not getting a good mark on an exam, but sustainable learning, and really most importantly, sustainable interest in learning is all about deriving meaning. Historically in math instruction, we have drilled and killed kids to death mathematically because we have fixated on the content, and we have made contextual application almost like something you earn. It's almost like a reward. We're at the end of a unit. If you've completed all this other stuff, then you get to solve the problems. And of course, most of those problems are not problems. They are contrived demonstrations. They are simply reinforcing an algorithm which took the last 30 pages of the textbook. Whereas a big part of a legitimate, genuine problem is, of course, determining the question. And so I think even problem solving in many cases is really kind of superficial and a bit fraudulent. But so many kids are denied those opportunities simply because they didn't get the basics. And don't get me wrong, basics are important, but just not in endless isolation. My dad and myself were asking each other trivia questions, sports, politics, history, whatever, which I had done for decades with him, and it was something we enjoyed doing. Well, what made this session really memorable was we each asked 2 or 3 questions, and my son piped up with the correct answer for every question within about 5 seconds. This blew my dad's mind. He went over and showed my dad that, of course, he'd been using his phone. Now, particularly 10 years ago, for someone in their early 80s at that time, that was absolutely mind-boggling. Now, for my son, of course, let alone 10 years ago, but even more so now, that, of course, is reality. So it just reinforced when the world is inundated with new information every day, and with access is just, 3, 4, 5 seconds for virtually anything, how can we possibly prioritize recall? Bottom line, as educators, we have to ensure that our moral imperative is always to help ignite the future, not recite the past. But it's a question of different concentric rings. The outer ring is informational. And obviously, we do need information. Obviously. The information are the who, what, when, where. They are low level on their own, but they are very necessary because they provide the context for the much richer questions. Now, the next ring going inside is the intellectual. Those are the whys and hows. I need the information to provide the theses for my whys and hows. And then the next ring in is the individual. And that's where I start to connect the whys and hows with my personal experiences and skills and areas that interest me. So utopian is what I call the ideal, and that's the little dot in the middle. That's the bullseye. If we have well-researched information, which is great, it just can't be the end of it. It's the beginning of learning, is my point. Information sets the tone, and then we have to use it to be intellectual, get challenging, get some real meat on the bone. Make me think. And then individual means make me think about stuff that's important to me. And if all of those things are together, we have the ideal.